which is Diversification for Market Success, Considerations for Diversifying Your Farm Operation. This program is being sponsored by Fraser Insurance Agency and MarketLink. And just to remind you, the session is being recorded. And also, please put questions for all speakers in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Our session moderator, Stacy Brenner, was unexpectedly unable to join us today, so I'll be stepping in as the moderator for the program. So, diversifying your operation. How do you diversify income streams, minimize risk, or both? How do you decide what will be a good fit? How do you determine the timing of adding another enterprise to your business? Our panelists share the hows and whys for their farm's diversification story, including successes and challenges. We have 4 farms represented, regional businesses, and 4 interesting speakers to tell their stories. First up is Matt Kushi. Matt is a first-generation farmer and owner of Kushi Farm and the North Hadley Chili Pepper Company, located in North Hadley, Mass. These are complementary businesses that serve to operate as small, multifunctional agricultural operations focused on providing both agricultural goods and agricultural services to the consumer. Formed in 2011, formalized in 2014, and created in honor of the original Kushi Farm that operated from 1907 to 1961. The goods and services offered include vegetable and resource crops, with a specialty in hot peppers and hot pepper products, private research for innovative growing systems, and development for interactive educational agricultural education exhibits. Matt also works at the Eisenberg School of Management at the University of Massachusetts as an academic matters coordinator. He has a BS in sport management and history and a master's of public policy and administration from UMass Amherst. Matt is also a Farm Bureau member and delegate, as well as chair of the Hadley Agricultural Commission. So Matt, it's all yours.
Thank you, Gail. So, welcome everyone. And as you can tell from my introduction, diversification is a major part of how I operate my business. I work at UMass full-time, so this is kind of something I do, as you would say, on the side, but as we know, farming is never a part-time or side venture, so it takes up quite a bit of time. And over the past 10 years, I've worked up a bit of an interesting business and an interesting story. So next slide. So a little bit about me. The introduction covered a lot of the basics about who I am. I kind of came into farming after college. It was something where I graduated in 2010. As we all know, the job market wasn't spectacular at that point. I'd always been into farming. I'd grown up around farms here in Hadley. And so I started a small vegetable garden, kind of an offshoot of the family's vegetable garden, started selling some stuff on my own, and found out that, hey, you can make money at this. So that was kind of how my farming career started. And as I learned more about business, developed my business acumen, some of the finer points and the importance of diversification within a business model became clear to me. Next slide. So this is a little bit of Kushi Farm. So this is pretty much our home base, what you see pictured in our logo here. So I established the business in 2011 and formalized it in 2014. And it's actually 2 complementary businesses. So from the start, I was starting to think about diversification. There's Kushi Farm, which is set up as a DBA, doing business as. That's your traditional crop production. That's your traditional resource crop production, because I grow squash, corn, occasionally hot peppers, bell peppers. And then there's the North Hadley Chili Pepper Company. This is the value-added product component. So these businesses are separate entities, but really they're like two divisions of the same entity. That's how I kind of view them. So next slide. So this is who we are, what we do. This was covered a bit in the introduction as well. But why did I start growing hot peppers? Why did I start farming? I started farming because, as I said, I grew up around it. And I've always been interested in business. It's something that's always struck my interest. In high school, I took a business track at my local high school. I was in the business school at UMass. I'm in the business school now in my full-time job at UMass. And I am in the MBA program currently at UMass. So I'm around business a lot, and applying that knowledge to agriculture is something that is a passion of mine. And so my day job dovetails very nicely with my side job. Next slide. So one of the big reasons I got into agriculture, and just to give a little history of my operation, it may have started in its modern element in 2011, just from a 10 by 10 plot in a family garden. But there's a history there. As Chris alluded to, there's a story. And this story is what helps build my diversification brand that I'm going to get into shortly. So the original Kushi Farm was founded by my great-grandparents. Joseph Kushi and Salomia Weiner came to the United States from Austria, Poland in 1903. They were escaping oppression. They were escaping conscription into the Austrian-Hungary army. They were trying to find the American dream and build a new lives for themselves. And they ended up in what is really one of the breadbaskets of Massachusetts, in the Pioneer Valley of Western Massachusetts. Interesting part of this story, my great-grandfather was also well regarded as a businessman, even from the start. He had land deeds almost from the first few years that he came to the United States, which isn't always the case for the immigrants who came over at that point in time. He also bought the main part of the farm that I still live on to this day from Levi Stockbridge's nephew. Levi Stockbridge being one of the founders of Massachusetts Agricultural College, now known as UMass Amherst. So that is the historical motivation and the beginning of the value adding part of this story. And next slide. So my main signature crop on the farm is hot peppers. Why hot peppers? Well, they add a lot to cuisine. They're an interesting crop. They're also a niche crop. They are a specialty crop that you don't need a ton of, but there's a lot of uses for them. I initially started growing them because they looked interesting. I didn't really have much of a taste for hot flavors at that time, but I eventually grew to. So I started growing hot peppers in bulk. I started selling to markets that I knew that I could sell to. I did not have infrastructure for a retail market at the time, so I started selling wholesale. Wholesale is what fits my business operation best, given my time constraints. However, as Chris alluded to in his very well done presentation, sometimes your profit margins and your marginal costs are a little tighter in the wholesale market. Sometimes you're selling, you're getting commission taken out of your paychecks, and you're selling in bulk, so more for kind of a set price. So I decided to try to diversify. Next slide. So I started looking into value-added products. It really started innocently enough. I went to a local farm market that's just down the road from me, and I had some extra hot peppers at the end of my growing season. I noticed that they sold a product called hot pepper jelly made from jalapeno peppers. I asked the farm manager if she needed any hot peppers to make her own jelly, and she revealed to me that they do outsource their jelly, and so they didn't have a demand for it. But a good market demand could be if I made my own. So that's what I started to do. I started to research value-added products. I started to research jams, jellies, anything that extended the shelf life of hot peppers. I started branding a story. I started adding value to what I was growing. Not only was I thinking of making hot pepper jelly just to have another product, there was a vision behind it. It could be a conversation starter. It could be something that individuals used on other food products to create an experience. And when you look at companies like Smucker's or any other of your value-added product developers, it's about creating an experience. It's adding value to your operation. And really, that's what diversification is about, adding value. So now we've got the adding value part. There's the vision, but it also has to make sense on the business side, as Chris mentioned in his presentation. So that's where our considerations for diversification come in. Next slide. And so I covered a bit of this already of hot pepper jelly. And what gives my hot pepper jelly its value is the story. It's the fact that I hand make it start to finish. It's the fact that the peppers that are used in that are grown on the farm. It's start to finish, end-to-end integration. As Chris mentioned in his presentation, telling a story is part of how you create value. Next slide. So what are some of the considerations for diversifying? Chris covered much of this, but these were a lot of the same steps that I took as I started to build my business and build kind of the second division of the business, the value-added production and diversification division. You need to identify your mission statement and purpose. You need to have a vision. Why are you doing this? Why are you creating this value-added product? Does it fit in with your current operations? So if you're doing even a value-added product or promoting extra services such as consulting, you need to know why. That is the main point. That's the beginning of a business plan. If you want people to invest in you, believe in your story, come to you as a business, they need to know the why and the how. So you're gonna have to study and redesign your business plan. You're gonna have to identify your resources. What's your capacity? What do you have to work with? Know your markets. Know if there's demand. If there is demand, are you in a position to capitalize on it? Do you have capacity to capitalize on it? Financially, is it feasible? What are the costs? What is the profitability? What is the return on investment? If it's not financially feasible, it is not sustainable. If an idea is not sustainable, your plans for diversifying are not going to work. Evaluate your operational processes. Every new venture requires certain steps and certain understandings. There's regulations that you need to keep in mind. There's different workflows that you need to keep in mind. Can you operate within that operational structure? And you need to also forecast your profitability, your risk, and efficiency. It's all about sustainability. And if all those check off, then you can start to implement your plan. These are all the steps that I started going through when I started researching hot pepper jelly and some of my extra services in terms of educational resources and design for exhibits. Some have been more successful than others. Some are still a work in progress. that's just how kind of the business part of diversifying goes. Some parts work, some parts you realize, okay, I'm not quite there yet. Let's put that on the back burner. As Chris mentioned, focus on our core product. Core product is crop production and making sure that I have enough hot peppers to make my value-added product line of hot pepper jelly. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the heart and soul of everything, you start with the business plan. This is the concrete foundation of diversification. I have mission statement highlighted. Whenever you start anything, start with a mission statement. It's going to provide the framework that you operate within when considering if you're going to diversify, how you're going to diversify, and when. You need to ask yourself a series of questions. How does diversifying impact your existing operation? Does it complement and enhance or coexist with your current operation? The answer to both of those should be yes. You need to perform financial and accounting analysis, cost-benefit analysis. Again, is it sustainable? And finally, when you're writing a business plan, look at what value is added. If you don't have value being added, no matter what your wish or vision might be, it is probably not in the best interest in terms of practicality and feasibility for your operation to diversify at that time. Next slide. Part of Chris's presentation was about markets. Markets, aside from the business plan, is, I would say, the second biggest or the most important consideration. Is there a demand for a new product? Do you have the capacity to meet that demand? If the answer to either is no, then you really don't have a reason to diversify. It's not going to add anything to your cash flow. It's not going to bring money into your operation. It could even take money from your operation. So say you have a business, one part of your business that breaks even and you're looking to finance it with another part of an operation. If it doesn't do that, what's the point? It might sound cool, you might have short-term sustainability, but you might be better off having marketing that idea to someone else, a different producer who can meet that demand. You have to think about your markets in terms of retail versus wholesale, profit margins, marginal costs, return on investment. Do you have distribution points? Those are all important considerations when you are looking at your markets. Next slide. Operations. What additional resources will you need? If you are going to go ahead with diversifying your operation, after you've determined how, when, why, you're going to need to create a new set of processes. So this is where bookkeeping, record keeping comes in addition to financial and accounting management. You need to create standard operation procedures so that you are as efficient as you are capable of becoming with diversifying. You want to put yourself in the best position to succeed with your new operation and your new value-added product or your new service that you're diversifying with. And also, what policies and regulations do you need to consider? Chris's story about the winery, perfect example. There's a lot of different bylaws and regulations, land use ordinances that you need to be aware of. Have a plan. Put all your ducks in a row before you decide to implement. Next slide. And obviously, finally, finances. Run some analysis on your books. Have good record keeping. As Chris alluded to, separating out your revenues and your expenses is critical. When you can do that, you can isolate different parts of your business and see how they're going to impact each other and affect each other. If diversifying your operation helps fund another part of your operation, or it adds value and enhances another part of your operation and adds to your profitability, then it is worth adding diversity to your farm. Next slide. And as we wrap up, I want to end with some of the keys to success. These are questions that I wrote down in a notebook as I look to add some of my additional services. You don't want to stretch yourself too thin. That should be obvious from anyone who knows business. But you also don't want to put all your eggs in a basket. So where's that fine line? Ask yourself these questions and you will start to define where that line is. Does your idea for diversifying your operation, does it add value to your current operation? Does it help finance your existing operation? Do you have capacity to expand or enhance your product line? Is there demand and does it make business sense? All of these answers should be yes. They were for my operation, which is why I continued on developing my business plan to have a diversification branch of value-added product. And if I had to say one thing, one piece of advice for everyone, it would be the key factor is to have a plan. Without a plan, you don't have anything. Even when mistakes are made, if you have a plan, you can go back and correct the mistake and keep moving forward. And next slide. So that's the end of my presentation. And my contact information is here, and questions and comments will be held at the end of the session. So if anyone has any questions, comments, please just type them away and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. And I guess I will just go from the first one till the end, and you can still add questions to the question and answer box as we go along here if something comes to mind. So the first one appears to be for Matt, and maybe can we bring all the panelists back on here? Matt, the question is, do you have your own certified kitchen? How big is your staff? And is it a small batch operation, or do you have larger batches, a canning facility, if you will?
That's a great question. I am a small batch producer. I'm looking to grow a little bit because right now it's pretty much just me, myself, and I, with occasionally my father, who has trouble making hot pepper jelly because of the fumes. But I've always intentionally tried to keep it small and self-produced, just because I feel that's what brings value in. That's the story I want to tell. And Aaron, I liked your point about sometimes like throw out the business plan part and go with your gut feeling. My strategy of keeping it small, homemade, has definitely been a gut feeling thing. And I've had people approach me left and right going, why don't you outsource the jelly just to get it started, which would probably make more business sense, but that's not the path that I've wanted to take. So I've been gradually building it. I am actually in the process of building my own certified kitchen. I was able to acquire land around me a little bit, so I'm able to undertake that venture. Right now, I'm a one-man staff out of a residential home kitchen. I would like to add for my operation, I only addressed half the business. For the farm part, it's pretty much myself, my father, and occasionally a friend who helps out every now and again for like hoeing or cultivating on the tractor, things like that.
How about Matt? Do you have a particular platform?
Venmo and Square are our two main ones.